Today I want to talk to you about boundaries, something that's very puzzling to many women, and it was puzzling to me for many years, and I get asked probably about boundaries more than just about anything. Whether it's in an email from a listener, or maybe a YouTube question, or from a person in a live meeting that I'm at, women will often ask about boundaries. So I want to explain what boundaries are and what they are not. A boundary is not asking your husband or your boyfriend to change, because you actually have no control over your boyfriend or husband. You can't make them change. You can request a change, of course, but you can't make them change. A boundary is what you can control. Basically, a boundary says, I can't change you, but I'm going to limit my exposure to your destructive or wounding or harmful behavior, your choices. I'm going to limit my exposure to your choices because that's something I can control. So let me give you some examples of what a boundary might look like. So let's say your husband is looking at pornography. You've caught him looking at pornography over and over again. You've asked him to change, and he is not changing. Now, you can't make him change, but what you can do is set a boundary on what you will tolerate, on your exposure to this. And so you might say to him, I've asked you to stop looking at pornography. I've asked you to get serious help. It seems like you have an addiction, but you're not willing to do that. So I'm going to move to a different bedroom, and I'm going to be sleeping in a different bedroom until you seek serious help. That's drawing a boundary. You're saying, I can't change you, but I can change my exposure to you, or I can limit my exposure to your bad behavior. A more serious boundary in that case would be saying, you know what, until you seek serious help for this, I'm going to have to move out. I'm going to actually literally separate myself from you until you seek help. That's setting a boundary. Again, you can't control that person, but you can set a boundary on what you will tolerate. How about another example? What maybe emotional abuse is going on in the marriage or the dating relationship, which you should not tolerate. You ask for the change, but let's say they're still emotionally abusive. They're shouting vulgar obscenities at you and just degrading you, and you're being pummeled. Your heart is being pummeled. Well, first of all, God says in Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. And so you've asked your husband or your boyfriend to stop that emotionally abusive behavior, but he is not. Again, you can't change him, but you can limit your exposure to that by setting a boundary and saying, if you do that even one more time, I will leave the room, or I will get in the car and I will leave the house for a short time to let you cool down, because I will not listen to someone talking to me like that. I don't deserve that, and I will not tolerate it. If it continues, a more serious boundary would be saying, if you start calling me those vulgar names again, I will actually need to separate from you until you seek help for your anger issues or whatever is going on. I will not tolerate this. That is setting a boundary. And before I finish, I just need to conclude by saying, boundaries are biblical. Let me read you two verses that might illustrate that God is saying in some cases you need to set a boundary. Again, you can't change the person, but you can limit your exposure to their harmful or wounding behavior. The first verse I want to share is Titus 3:10. Warn a divisive person once, warn him a second time, and after that, have nothing to do with him. That kind of sounds like setting a boundary to me. And 1 Corinthians 5:11. I am writing to you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is sexually immoral or greedy, an idolater or slanderer, a drunkard or swindler. Do not even eat with such people. That is setting a boundary also. Boundaries are biblical, and God does want you to protect your heart.